There are moments in military history when the sound of silence speaks louder than the roar of guns. This story began on a sun-scorched morning at the Northern Frontier Training Base, a place where discipline was forged with iron and pride was broken with words.
Captain Viraj Singh ruled the parade ground with absolute command. Every soldier stiffened at the sound of his boots. His words struck like thunder. His punishments followed like storms. To him, fear was the truest form of respect.
But among the new recruits stood one man who neither flinched nor folded. Cadet Arav Mehta, a farmer's son from the plains of Rajasthan. Calm eyes, steady shoulders, a man of few words. He saluted with precision, worked with devotion, and never sought praise.
Captain Viraj despised him instantly. To the captain, Arav's silence was not discipline, it was defiance.
And so began a silent war. Morning drills turned into endurance torture. Orders were doubled. Rest was halved. Yet Arav's face remained unreadable, his salute unbroken. Until one morning, during a full parade inspection, Captain Viraj decided to make an example out of him. Before 500 soldiers, the captain vowed to crack the mute recruit. What followed would echo through the regiment's history for decades. The parade ground shimmered with heat. Boots stood frozen. Rifles gleamed. Breath held. Captain Viraj paced before Arav, voice slicing through the air. "Why do you never answer, Cadet Mehta? Are you deaf or simply proud?" No reply. He barked again, louder. "Speak, or I'll have you scrubbing latrines till sunset." Still silence. The captain's fury boiled. He stepped closer, face inches away, shouting, "You think you're better than your captain?" Arav's eyes didn't move. Only the faint whisper of his breath broke the stillness.
Then Viraj slapped him, a sharp, echoing crack. Every man froze. Even the wind seemed to stop. Arav did not blink. He simply stood at attention. Perfect posture, unwavering. The silence that followed was deafening. For the first time, Captain Viraj's hand trembled. He had struck him, but it was his own pride that shattered.
The air around the parade ground turned heavy, thick with disbelief. No one dared to breathe. The captain, red with anger and shame, stared into the unflinching eyes of the cadet he could not break. Arav neither wiped the mark from his cheek nor looked away. He saluted, crisp, precise, and said quietly, "Permission to continue the drill, sir?" It was the only sentence he ever spoke that day. The captain said nothing. His voice had deserted him. He turned away, barking half-hearted orders, but every command now echoed hollow. The authority that once thundered through his tone had evaporated. That evening, as whispers spread through the barracks, something changed. Soldiers who once feared the captain began to look at him differently, not with awe, but with quiet pity. And when they saw Arav, they stood a little straighter. Later that night, the commandant summoned Viraj. "I heard there was an incident," he said slowly. "You struck a recruit." Viraj hesitated. "He provoked me with silence." The commandant studied him coldly. "Then it seems his silence held more strength than your rank." Those words crushed whatever arrogance remained in the captain.
The next morning, Captain Viraj stood before his men again, but now his gaze fell when it met Arav's. He gave a brief nod. Arav returned it, not in triumph, but in respect. From that day, no order of the captain was questioned, because discipline was no longer enforced by fear, it was inspired by dignity. Moral. True power does not come from shouting commands or striking blows. It comes from control, from the quiet strength to stand tall when the world tries to crush you.
Years passed. Arav Mehta rose through the ranks with the same silent determination. By the time he became a major, his legend had already spread, whispered from barracks to academies across the nation. They called him the man who broke a captain without a word. Cadets studied historian not for strategy, but for spirit. For every soldier knew now, the uniform demanded obedience, but respect could never be commanded. It had to be earned. As for Captain Viraj, he retired quietly, far from the parades he once dominated. In his final years, he often spoke of one man, the recruit who had taught him humility without saying a single word.
Once, during a military ceremony, a young officer asked Major Arav, "Sir, what gave you the courage to stay silent that day?" Arav smiled faintly and replied, "Because noise fades, Lieutenant, but silence echoes forever." The words hung in the air, timeless, immortal. And so the legend lived on, of the soldier whose silence silenced an empire of arrogance,